For thousands of years, the galaxy spun under a fragile balance of power. The races of the stars had formed uneasy alliances, built civilizations of unimaginable scale, and learned to navigate the endless expanse of the void. But behind all the treaties, trade deals, and smiling ambassadors, one universal truth remained. Violence was always someone else's problem. That was the illusion the Krethak supremacy built its empire upon. Towering predators with 6 limbs of serrated chitin, rows of jagged mandibles, and eyes that burned with cruel intelligence. The Krethak saw themselves as the apex, the strongest. Their doctrine was simple: dominate, enslave, or exterminate. To the Krethak, diplomacy was weakness. Words were weapons only if they were followed by teeth and blood. And for centuries it worked. The peaceful civilizations, the Alari, the Valori, the Kendran, bent, cowered, and submitted. Empires fell, homeworlds burned. Resistance was always short-lived. Then ... They found humans. At first, they saw us as they saw every species, weak. Isolated on a blue marble at the edge of a minor spiral arm, primitive, divided. But the Krethak were wrong, deadly wrong. The first encounter was subtle. A lone human exploration ship, TSV Dawnfire, wandered into Krethak space, scanning an uncharted gas giant for resources. The Krethak demanded surrender. The humans refused. The Krethak opened fire. It should have been the end. But instead of running, the human crew retaliated, disabling 2 Krethak frigates before going down in flames. Before their ship disintegrated, the captain sent a single message back to Earth, not a distress signal. Not a plea for help, a declaration. Hostile contact confirmed. They wanted monsters. They just found humanity. Back on Earth. The unified Terran command reviewed the footage, the arrogance in the Krethak transmissions, the brutality of the attack. And for the first time in over 100 years of peaceful galactic expansion, humanity prepared for war, not the kind the galaxy was used to, not skirmishes, not posturing, not tactical raids. No. The humans prepared for total war. The Krethak expected an immediate response. A diplomatic envoy, sanctions, maybe a fleet of fragile ships with shields and lasers that could be torn apart like every other species. Instead, the stars went silent. For 3 months. No broadcasts, no movement. No signals until something changed. Entire sectors near Krethak space began reporting sensor anomalies. Artificial wormholes opening where none should exist. Gravitational distortions that didn't match any known propulsion method. Stars dimming from the shadows cast by. Something massive. Krethak scouts were sent to investigate. None returned. On the 4th month, the Krethak homeworld, Gorektal, received an automated transmission, a voice, cold as the void. You wanted monsters. You found humanity. We are coming. On the edge of the Krethak dominion, space itself seemed to fracture. The first human fleet arrived, not ships like the Krethak expected, but predators of steel and plasma. Eclipse glass dreadnoughts longer than cities, hulls coated in adaptive stealth alloys that absorbed light and radar alike. Escorting them were wings of Cerberus drone swarms, autonomous AI killers designed not to fight ships, but to consume them. The Krethak Navy met them in orbit over Valric Prime, their most fortified colony world. 50 Krethak war cruisers, bristling with organic plasma cannons and razor tentacle grapples, prepared for battle. They never stood a chance. Humanity didn't fight like the rest of the galaxy. There were no warning shots. No negotiation. No honor in the form of ritual combat. Humanity fought like monsters. The first volley came from mass driver platforms stationed 3 light seconds away. Tungsten rods accelerated to near light speed. The kinetic impact alone shattered the shields of half the Krethak fleet. The second wave was worse, a swarm of micro-singularity torpedoes that created temporary black holes on impact, folding matter, energy, and entire vessels into oblivion. In under 13 minutes, the Krethak fleet ceased to exist. Valric Prime's planetary defenses came online. Plasma towers, orbital ion cannons, railgun grids, none of it mattered. human orbital insertion pods, coded in ablative stealth. Plating dropped through the atmosphere at hypersonic speeds. On the surface, Krethak soldiers prepared for ground combat, expecting the kind of warfare they'd seen for centuries. Infantry lines, armored divisions, squads of troops moving cautiously. What they got instead were the nightmares of evolution, Goliath. Exoframes, towering mech suits 3 stories tall, hit the ground first, leveling entire Krethak fortresses with pulse cannons and gravity hammers. Behind them came Reaper squads, infantry in powered armor, moving at speeds that blurred the eye, armed with coil guns capable of firing magnetically accelerated shards of depleted uranium that shredded organic armor like tissue. Every Krethak stronghold fell within hours. Cities burned. Genetic databanks were erased. Shipyards were glassed from orbit. For every human lost on the TSV Dawnfire, the Krethak paid with 10,000 lives. But humanity wasn't done. This wasn't about victory. This wasn't about politics. This was about sending a message to the galaxy. You wanted monsters. You wanted to see what humanity was capable of. You called the darkness. Now ... did. And in the distance, more wormholes opened, more fleets arrived. The Krethak realized too late that they hadn't started a war, they had summoned extinction. When the Krethak dominion fell silent, the galaxy noticed. Not because it was unusual for the Krethak to go dark, but because of how quickly it happened. Entire sectors, once filled with Krethak warships, transmissions, and territorial broadcasts, became blank. Trade routes once plagued by Krethak raiders now reported nothing. No interference, no patrols. Only dead space. The neighboring empires, the Ilari Confederacy, the Kendran Collective, and the neutral traders of the Mirani Accord scrambled their deep-range probes. The results were ... incomprehensible. What was once Krethak space was now a graveyard. Satellites floated in tatters. Stations spun lifeless, ruptured at the seams. Planets bore the scars of precision orbital strikes. Entire continents reduced to molten glass, cities erased without trace. Orbital shipyards massive, living structures grown over centuries were now twisted wreckage spiraling into dead suns, and above it all, drifting like sharks in bloodied water, were the Terran fleets, silent, black, watching. You wanted monsters, you found them. This wasn't war. This was predation. The Ilari, the galaxy's diplomats, historians, and peacekeepers, held an emergency conclave. Panicked voices filled the crystalline chamber on their homeworld of Velshara Prime. The humans have gone mad. This is genocide. No species has ever responded with this level of violence. But the oldest among them, arch-historian Valanis, stood silently, studying the human response through a grainy, hacked Terran military feed. His fronds trembled as he spoke. No, this isn't madness. This is restraint. The chamber fell silent. If humans truly desired annihilation, there would be no planets left, no debris. No signals, only void. And as the others processed that, a chilling realization spread. The humans are sending a message. The Krethak weren't the only ones watching. Far beyond, the Zereth hegemony, a cold-blooded empire that thrived on slave labor, reviewed the disaster unfolding. Their war councils debated, could humanity be contained? Was this a freak event? An emotional outburst that would burn itself out? Then came the footage. Human Cerberus-class drones swarming entire Krethak battle lines, tearing them apart, molecule by molecule. Eclipse dreadnoughts launching singularity warheads that folded Krethak fleets into screaming voids. Ground forces wielding massgrav cannons, turning Krethak cities into craters within seconds. The Zereth scientists ran the simulations. Best case scenario, 94% military loss. Worst case, complete cultural extinction within 6 months. The council broke into chaos. And for the first time in Zereth history, they sent a message of unconditional neutrality at the Galactic Center. The Council of Sovereign Species met in what would become its final session in its current form. The human representative, Admiral Marcus Steele, stood alone in the center of the chamber, a place usually reserved for diplomats in ceremonial robes. Steel wore full black combat armor, Terran flag emblazoned on one shoulder. The words "Never Again" etched across the chest plate. Around him floated the holograms of dozens of species: winged Valori, crystalline Cythrain, the amphibious, Kendarin, and more. Their colors flickered with stress signals, pulsating reds, dimmed blues, folded wings, retracted frills. Steele's voice was steady, cold, calculated. You watched as the Krethak committed atrocities for centuries. You signed treaties, you sent warnings, you imposed sanctions, and every time you failed, you call us monsters. Good. Because monsters get things done, the Sparrow 4 is gone. 9 million humans burned alive. No one intervened. No one stopped it, so humanity did. If anyone in this chamber believes the response was disproportionate, test it. Test it, and see what happens. Not a single delegate replied, not one. Back on Earth, the unified Terran command didn't celebrate. There were no fireworks, no parades. Humanity's response wasn't born of pride. It was born of pain, loss, rage sharpened into purpose. In military command bunkers deep beneath the Andes, screens lit up with tracking data. AI-controlled war platforms rotated into new sectors, orbital weapon arrays repositioned. Shipyards accelerated production, not because of immediate threats, but because humanity had learned the hardest lesson the stars could teach. Mercy is not guaranteed. Safety is not gifted. Peace is enforced. In the shattered remnants of Krethak space, something unexpected happened. Survivors. Pockets of Krethak civilians, mostly non-combatants, workers, larvae nests, huddled in underground shelters, starved, terrified, forgotten by their own military. When Terran forces arrived, the Krethak prepared for extermination. They knew what they'd done. They expected annihilation, but humanity surprised them. Cargo drops, medical supplies, emergency food rations, water. The Terran ground commander broadcast a single message: your leadership brought this upon you, but we are not them. We don't kill the innocent. We only bury the guilty. It wasn't mercy. It was clarity. The Krethak survivors were relocated. Some were given asylum. Others were handed over to neutral factions. The message was clear: humanity doesn't start wars, but we end them. Completely. The galaxy trembled, but something more profound lingered beneath the fear. Respect. For the first time in galactic history, an empire didn't fall because of internal collapse or economic failure or political sabotage. It fell because someone stronger, someone angrier, chose to take it down. And that someone was humanity. As the months passed, former Krethak systems came under Terran jurisdiction. Patrol fleets maintained the quarantine. War crimes tribunals were held not by the Council but by Terran law. Every Krethak general, admiral, politician, and warlord responsible for the Vespera massacre was hunted down. Some tried to flee to distant systems. They were found. Some tried to hide under false identities. The AI hunters uncovered them. Some tried to fight. None survived. Justice. Was absolute. And yet humanity issued no demands of the Council, no imperial edicts, no forced tributes. Just one rule: if you harm a human. Anywhere. Or any reason, the monsters you called before will return. In the farthest corners of the galaxy, in dark rooms and hushed voices, children of other species whispered the story. Once, the Krethak thought they were the monsters of the stars, but they were wrong. They found something worse. They found humanity. The war was over, not because the fighting had ended, but because there was no one left willing to fight. The Krethak dominion was gone, not occupied, not conquered, gone. Systems once overflowing with fleets, war machines, and slave colonies were now silent, stripped clean, or converted into Terran-controlled zones marked in crimson on every galactic map. The galaxy had never seen a transformation so swift, so brutal yet so precise. There were no wars of expansion, no declarations of empire. Humanity didn't seek domination. They sought compliance, balance, and fear-induced peace, and it worked. Where the Krethak once ruled through terror, the Terran Accord ruled through absolute deterrence. Every species, whether minor trade, guilds, or sprawling star empires, redrafted their laws. Every diplomatic agreement now included a single clause at the top: do not harm humans. Ever. Even the Zereth hegemony, infamous for centuries of slave trading, signed the Accord of Non-Aggression, the first treaty in their blood-stained history. The penalty for a violation wasn't trade sanctions or political exile. It was erasure. Total, without appeal. When a rogue pirate syndicate tested this by ambushing a human cargo convoy near the rim, the response wasn't a fleet. It was a single automated dreadnought dot in under 7 minutes. The pirate base, its fleets, and every connected facility across 4 star systems were wiped from existence. The planets weren't bombed, they were cracked open. Their cores detonated into expanding clouds of molten iron and vaporized rock. The message repeated across every frequency in every language: you called the monsters. Never forget what you summoned. But the consequences of awakening humanity went far beyond warfare. Human science, once restrained by peace treaties and ethical committees, now pushed past barriers no one dared touch. Dark energy manipulation, quantum-entangled weapons, biosynthetic soldiers, directed planet-cracking devices. What scared the galaxy most wasn't that humans had developed these technologies. It was that they didn't use them. Unless they had to, humanity understood restraint in a way no one else could fathom, not because they were peaceful by nature, but because they understood the full price of unleashing true monstrosity. And Earth itself? No longer the vulnerable? Blue marble at the edge of the galactic spiral. The Sol system became the most heavily fortified region in known space. The Aegis Wall, a ring of battle stations, each the size of small moons, armed with planet-scale mass drivers, singularity, generators, and hyperlight disruptors. The Orion Sentinels, AI fleets in permanent orbit, powered by Dyson swarms around Sol and Jupiter. The Titan Shield, planetary shields layered in quantum barriers, capable of withstanding direct stellar flares and gravitational distortions. Invading Earth wasn't just impossible. It was suicide on a cosmic scale. The psychological impact was permanent. Alien species that once dismissed humanity as backward, primitive, or disorganized now treated any human presence with the reverence once reserved for apex predators. Terran ships were given right-of-way in all star lanes. Terran citizens were granted automatic diplomatic immunity in over 200 sovereign systems. Humanity's presence alone deterred wars between third parties. In markets, the phrase became a proverb. If a human walks into the room, the conversation changes. In border skirmishes, commanders would ask first before firing, "Is there a human on the field?" Then stand down. But perhaps the most chilling development wasn't military. It was cultural. Across alien civilizations, a new subject entered school curriculums: Terran history, the day the monsters came. Children were shown images of the Krethak homeworld, before and after. Holovids of Terran fleets blotting out stars. AI-generated simulations of human weaponry cracking entire planets like eggs, not to glorify it. Not as propaganda, but as a warning, a lesson. When you think of aggression, remember humanity. When you think of violence, remember humanity. And when you think of crossing them, don't. Despite it all, humanity wasn't cruel. Terran fleets didn't patrol for conquest. They patrolled for order. When the Valori Civil War broke out, Terran peacekeepers intervened, not with bombs, but with orbital blockade drones that froze the conflict until negotiations succeeded. When a starfaring plague threatened the Myrni species, it was Terran biologists and AI medics that developed a cure in under a week. When the Nithari sun began to collapse, Terran engineers stabilized it with a gravity lattice, saving 4 billion lives. But the price for this mercy was clear: never cross the line. One galactic historian summed it up perfectly. In the end, humanity became the monsters the galaxy always feared. But they are not monsters by nature. They are monsters by design, by necessity, and thank whatever gods you believe in, that they choose to sleep most of the time. Yet, in the dark places between galaxies, Whispers began, ancient things. Dormant civilizations, entities beyond physics. Things even the Krethak once feared. They stirred, sensing the shift, but unlike before, the galaxy no longer feared the dark, because now, the dark feared what lived in the light. It feared humanity. You wanted monsters. You found humanity. And the stars would never forget.